To this week's contemporary halacha shir, because we begin the 3 weeks, the Bein HaMetzarim, on Thursday with Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, I thought I would choose a topic related to that, and I'm going to focus on listening to music in the 3 weeks. If you're listening online, please email me at j.golker@gmail.com or go to the website torahtoday.org for the source sheet. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says in the beginning of Kuf Chof Beis, Kiven Sheb Shiva Asar B'Tammuz Hischilu Saras HaChurban, since the beginning of the Taurus began on the 17th of Tammuz, that is when the beginning of mourning starts, and it gets more intense as we approach Tisha B'Av. So one of the applications of this mourning is of course not listening to music, and interestingly the Shulchan Aruch doesn't actually address the issue specifically, but does in reference to all year round restrictions for Zeichel Churban. So let's take a look at some of the things he says. This is in Siman Tov Kuf Samach, it's the second box on the page. In Sif Aleph, the Shulchan Aruch says this: Mishachar of Beis Hamikdash, when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Tiknu Chachomim Shu Ba'is Hadar She'in Beinim La'olim Binin Mesuyad. Chazal will misake in various things. One of them is, the first one is, not to build a building which is Mesuyad and Mechuyer Kabinin HaMelachim, a very elaborate, beautiful building which is plastered and decorated like a palace. At a toch beisoy batit, a person should plaster his house with sod basid and then lime it. That was a practice in those days. And then you leave an amma al amma without decoration. That is a zeichel churban. So that's the first thing he mentions. We've got a whole share on that on the site. That's the first thing. And then in Sif Beis, the Mechaber says this: other practices. Someone prepares a meal for guests. He leaves something out. There's something missing. He sets. There's a setting without a plate, like an empty space, if you like, at the table. When a woman makes herself up and puts on her jewelry, she leaves out one item of jewelry that she just sort of, that she shows there's something missing. That her jewelry, her makeup shouldn't be complete, that she's left out one item. Another example, when a chassan gets married, the minhag is in many places that we do this, that you put a bit of ash in the place where he puts his tefillin sharosh. Adds the Ramah, another expression of the mourning is that we break a glass at the time of the chuppah. And again, we've had a share on that as well. I think nowadays it gets to the point where you're perhaps out or you're in a restaurant and someone knocks a glass and it falls to the ground and everyone screams Mazel Tov. That it's actually exactly the opposite of what Chazal were intending. Chazal were intending to sort of temper the spirit and dampen the celebration. I suppose nowadays at the end of a chuppah, at least before we break the glass, we sing in Meshkochech Yerushalayim and other things, and that at least gives us moments in this very powerful time to reflect on the Beis Hamikdash and the loss, and then we break the kais, and then it sort of bursts into simcha dancing. And all of the above are to remember Yerushalayim, Shnema Meshkochech Yerushalayim, Le'al Yerushalayim Al Rosh Simchasi. Now, then in the next sif, the Mechaber says, "V'chein gozru shelo nagin b'chlishe v'chol minei zemer v'chol mashmiei kol sheshir l'sameach bohem." That is what we referred to earlier, that the Mechaber says that there's no music. You shouldn't be having music all year round as part of the Zeichel Churban. And of course, the minhag is that we listen to music during the year, and indeed, in the various restrictions that the Mechaber and the Ramah mention, some are kept and have sort of become parts of mainstream Jewish practice, breaking the kais of the chuppah, and the amma and amma is quite widespread, but some things have not sort of become parts of Jewish life, such as leaving a place at the table for Zeichel Churban. You don't really see that so much. and listening to music throughout the year. Of course, in some circles that is practiced. The Ramah says, Yeshomrim, first of all, Dafka Misha Rogabohem, Kagoin HaMelachim, that's one sort of exception, as it were, and therefore everyone else is not sort of bound by it. And also, V'chein Tzorech Mitzvah Kagoin B'beis Chosen V'Kala HaKol Shari. But in some circles in Yerushalayim, you don't hear music all year round, and only at a chasna, and only then with certain types of instruments. But the practice, certainly the minhag in the Jewish world, is to listen to music all year round, and therefore when it comes to the 3 weeks, the restriction of not listening to music kicks in. Now, in Siman Tov Kuf Nun Aleph, we deal with rikudim, we deal with dancing, and that is certainly prohibited, sort of simcha dancing, during the 3 weeks. The Ramah says, "Nagin lahachmish einosim yuzayin tamuz ve'elach ad achat tishbav." The minhag, one of the famous minhagim, is that we don't get married. There are no marriages between Shivos and Tammuz and Tisha B'Av. Says the Magen Avraham, nearly the osel rikudin amecholis, the osel lasos rikudin amecholis miyudzayin b'Tammuz ve'elach. No dancing during this time, and the Mishnah Berurah says the same thing. And the Kitzur says the same thing. So all of the classic sources prohibit dancing during this time. So are there any other exceptions? When is it mutter to listen to music? What about recorded music, for example? Is that okay? Is it only live music that's the problem? So Rav Moshe and Rabbi Avad Yosef both say categorically that even recorded music is forbidden. Says Rav Moshe in the box number 4, listening to even on the radio, i.e. it's not live, that would be forbidden. And so says the Yechavadas. He says in there, in the bottom line, even though the rest of the year we do, derech haradio v'reshem, through listening to the radio or recorded music, kol shirei kodesh ha'meluim kli nagina, Jewish songs with instrumental. One should refrain during the Bein HaMetzarim, the 3 weeks, and also during the Sfira. So recorded music is not going to be an exception. What about children? Are they considered excluded from this? So the answer is, that, again, Rav Moshe deals with it and says, "B'mei Sfira yesh leso b'zimra demona aflach ma'matir na'in sham, or pashat shehu adin she'osa af b'mei Bein HaMetzarim." And therefore, children should also be included in that. He says, and therefore children should be included in this restriction. And therefore, not listening to music applies to men and women and children of chinuch age, which approximately is the age of 7 or 8, and therefore younger children, if they want to listen to music, they're 4 or 5 years old, under the age of chinuch, then there would be leeway for them. Now, what about a professional musician, or you just want to do music practice? Is that allowed? So the Pri Megadim says, Yisrael shaparnasosu klizema etzel eni Yisrael bebeis mishtois. If your profession is to be a musician and you play in non-Jewish circles, for parnasa, for financial reason, that would be okay. Okay, on the actual day of Shiva B'Tammuz or Asar B'Tevis, one should avoid it. Like we try and refrain from Rosh Chodesh to Latanis. So therefore, the Pri Megadim seems to say that for financial reason, if that's your parnasa, your professional musician, then that would be okay, certainly until Rosh Chodesh Av, for a non-Jewish audience. And but not on Shiva Asar B'Tammuz itself. Reb Shimon Aida, in his halachas of the 3 weeks, on page 2, he says that a music teacher or a professional musician may play music for non-Jewish, for non-Jews until Rosh Chodesh, much the same as what the Pri Megadim is saying. And when it comes to music practice, so again, that in a place in a sefer called Mardei Yeshurun, Reb Aaron Felder quotes Reb Moshe, who says that one who is learning to play an instrument may practice. However, after Rosh Chodesh Av, it is preferable that is done in a secluded place, i.e., not in at home where the whole household can hear it. Others prohibit from Rosh Chodesh. That's from Shimon Aida again. Okay, now another big discussion is a cappella music. A cappella music is, of course, music without instrumentals. It's just vocals, and sometimes done so beautifully that it sounds like it's instrumental, and they're harmonizing in a very sophisticated way. Now, most authorities prohibit it. For example, Dayan Waldberg in the Tzitz Eliezer in box number 7 says, "L'daiti mikimin shebebein hamitzarim also gam berikudin u'mecholos im kein also afilu im hashira v'azimra hi mima sheheklitu mishira v'zimra tepeh." Even if it's just vocals and it's been recorded in that way without any instrumental music. That should be also, because once it's recorded, it sort of becomes a cliche. And Dayan Waldberg and Vosner are machmir. Others, of course, permit it. I know many years ago, we in school we wanted to ask. The boys were asking us the whole time, and the girls as well, in the girls' school. And we went to one of the elector Rabbanim, Pinchas Roberts Zatzal, and he allowed a cappella. He said certainly for our students at Hasmonean, we should allow a cappella when for students, for teenage high school students. So there are different opinions. Many authorities prohibit it, but there is certainly what to rely on. What about Sheva Brachos? What about music in a Sheva Brachos at a wedding that takes place before Shiva B'Tammuz? Of course, you can't have chasnas during the 3 weeks. But what about, let's say, this week Shiva B'Tammuz is on a Thursday, I've got a chasna Baruch Hashem on a Tuesday and Wednesday. And let's say I was invited to a Sheva Brachos on Sunday, which is now into the 3 weeks. Are you allowed to have music at a Sheva Brachos? So Reb Vosner and Reb Moshe Sternbuch, both prohibit music for a Sheva Brachos, where the chasna was before Shiva B'Tammuz, of course. But I am familiar with other situations where it was allowed. But certainly, what I've come across is Reb Vosner and Reb Sternbuch prohibit it. Poskim do have a permit uplifting singing on Shabbos and Zmiras and Sudas Mitzvahs. That is not a problem. Another area which often comes up is that of exercise. Are you allowed to listen to music when you're running, when you're exercising? The Minchas Shlomo and also Simcha Bunim Cohen noted there in the footnote, there are poskim who allow listening to music to alleviate health issues. For example, if there's anxiety attacks and it calms a person to listen to music, then that would certainly be okay. Or to enhance performance of exercise, that's also cited. So if you feel it's very hard for you to run without listening to music, then there are poskim who permit that. The really serious runners, by the way, they would run without music. They feel the music interferes with their rhythm and their exercise. But if you feel that it would enhance your performance of exercise, that would be okay. Rabbi Rosler, who's I've listened to and I quote often, he quotes Rabbi Aaron Lichtenstein, who made the distinction between music, sort of simcha music for enjoyment, and functional music, he called it, which is for exercise or, for example, to help stay awake on the long car journey. You're driving back from somewhere late at night and you want to just stay awake and music will help you. That's considered functional music as opposed to enjoyment, and Aaron would allow that. Another point is background music. Therefore, if you, for example, go to a shopping center, a shopping mall, and there's some background music being played, that is not a problem. Your primary focus is to go shopping and to go there. You're not going for entertainment, as it were, to listen to music. It's not a concert. So that is a summary of listening to music in the 3 weeks. Just to summarize what we've said, that interestingly, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't address this directly, but in reference to all year round, he includes it as not listening to music as generally as a zeichel churban. However, the minhag in Klal Yisrael is to listen to music during the year in almost all circles. What is referred to as rikudim is dancing, and that's prohibited by the contemporary and classic sources, ranging from the Magen Avraham, the Mishnah Berurah, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Recorded music is not an exception. Both Rav Moshe and Rav Ovadia Yosef prohibits recorded music as well as, of course, live music. And it applies to this restriction of not listening to music applies to men, women, and children over the age of chinuch. Kids under the age of chinuch, that would be permitted. Professional musicians or a music teacher, where they're doing it for parnasa, may play music for a non-Jewish audience or non-Jewish student until Rosh Chodesh. And one who is learning to play an instrument may practice. However, after Rosh Chodesh, it's preferable to be done in a secluded place, and others actually prohibit it from Rosh Chodesh. A cappella music is debated. Many authorities prohibit it. The Tzitz Eliezer, Reb Vosner, because once it's recorded, it's sort of treated as a cliche. Others, however, do permit it. Sheva brachos that for a chasna that took place before Shiva B'Tammuz, Again, Rav Voz and Rav Sternbuch prohibit music in that situation, but I'm aware of other poskim who permit it. Exercise, poskim allow music for health concerns, whether it's mental health such as anxiety attacks, or to enhance performance during exercise and to make it easier to exercise. Of course, I guess others are stricter, certainly with regard to physical exercise. And background music in a shopping centre or a shopping mall, and these sort of things, that would be permitted.